Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alumni Series workshop that we have today with alumna Lisa Collins, who's also the Director of HR Productions at Netflix. We're really excited to have her join us. My name is Elof Altoma with the Career Center, and I'm just going to give a few more seconds for people to join us. Sorry, 1 second. Oh, that's so weird. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties with going live. Just to let all the students know, we are recording this session. And if you are uncomfortable with being recorded, I just ask that you turn your camera off. We are also going live on Facebook with this so that more individuals have access to hear this conversation.
Elof, if you're having trouble going live, you may want to log off of Facebook and then log back on.
Okay, let me just try it one more time. It should work. I had it almost set up. If you are a CSUDH student, if you can please go ahead and input your email, your Toro email into the chat box. That's how we can check you into this session, and we will be sending a recording as well. Once we've uploaded to YouTube, we'll be sending out a recording of all the Alumni Series workshops to the students who have RSVP'd. All right, 1 second while I get this up and running, but if y'all can just please input your Toro email, and then I'll make a quick announcement just about some of the other events that we have going on this week. We have a LinkedIn workshop with Ryan Zavakos from LinkedIn. He's really great, so we're excited to have him share some virtual networking strategies with you all. All right, and then I'm gonna go ahead and introduce, another workshop that we have coming up is tomorrow. We have a workshop with the COOP. It's an organization that provides marketing professional development for recent graduates. So definitely check that out if you're interested in marketing and data analytics. And Friday, we have our last session, which is with Demario Davis. He's an NFL linebacker with the New Orleans Saints, but he's also a huge advocate for immigration and criminal justice reform. And so we're excited to have him share a few words of inspiration and motivation with CSUDH students, and that will also include a Q&A section. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it off. I think we're live now, so I'm going to hand it off to Felicia Hernandez. She's the Director of Alumni Relations at CSUDH, and she will go ahead and take over. So thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is such an exciting group. I see so many signed on, and congratulations to all the class that just recently graduated. I'm so excited for you guys. This is an important milestone and something that you guys, I'm sure, won't forget. And I just wanted to appreciate you all for joining in with us today. And I do want to say that I hope you do participate and stay connected with the university, like our alumna, who I'm about to introduce, who is Lisa Collins. Lisa Collins has been reconnected with the university. And like her, I hope that all of you stay connected and can, in the future, share your stories. So I'm going to go ahead and push forward with Lisa and introduce her. And Lisa she holds a BA in Interdisciplinary Studies and Communications from Cal State Dominguez Hills. And she also has her MA in Management and Leadership from Webster University. Lisa Collins is currently the Director of Production HR at Netflix, and is an accomplished HR professional with over 20 years of experience in the entertainment field. Current role, Lisa leads the team responsible for providing HR support to cast and crew members working on Netflix around the world. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Lisa, who's going to share her story.
Hi, everyone. I can see some faces, and so it's really nice to see some of you, and I am just really excited. I'm excited to have the opportunity to speak with you today. And I want to wish you, all of those of you who have graduated, congratulations. huge accomplishment. So I'm very happy for you, and can't wait to see the impact that you make on the world. So just a couple of things. I have a dog. I am praying that he is cooperative during this discussion that we will have. I also have some notes just to keep me on track. So if you see me look in this direction, it's just me looking at my notes to help keep me on track with our discussion. You know, I am a graduate of CSUDH. I'm super proud of that. And really my goal for the conversation today, I wanted to share a little bit of me and share a little bit about my story. I also wanted to talk to you about how I ended up attending Cal State Dominguez. I am happy to provide information about guiding and navigating your own career. And then I hope we have a little bit of time for some Q&A. So I encourage you, as I'm speaking, you know, feel free to use the chat box to ask a question or share a comment, and hopefully someone can, you know, see if there are questions coming through there in the chat box and share them with me. And near the end of this, we can do a bit of a Q&A. So let's get started. So a little bit about me. I am a native Californian. I was born and raised here in California. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. I like to say in the city of San Fernando, Pacoima adjacent. Sometimes more Pacoima than San Fernando, but that's where I'm from. That's where I grew up. And at the time that we moved to the San Fernando Pacoima area, my mom was newly divorced. And, you know, I really watched my mom go from being a housewife for a number of years to being a single working mother. And I think that really sparked my motivation to, you know, explore the world, to gain information, to gain an education. And I think that is the one thing, just watching my mom work hard, support a family, sort of created that same drive of hard work in me. And so I'm always grateful for that. You know, went to high school, graduated, and went straight into college. And I started my college career at Cal State Northridge. And that will make sense when we get further into this conversation. But I attended Cal State Northridge. You know, I lived on campus. I pursued my major. I pledged a sorority. And I had a great traditional college experience. And in my 4th year as a senior at Northridge, I was also interning at a record company. And that record company offered me full-time employment. And I made the decision to take the job and said, you know, I'll go from being a daytime student to being an evening student, and went from being a full-time working person to a sometimes evening student, and ultimately let my education fall by the wayside. And so I started pursuing, you know, various interests in the workforce, and ultimately landed in human resources, and loved it. Loved connecting people with opportunities, talking to people, you know, meeting students, and, you know, getting them involved in internships and doing all the things, right? And I did that for about 12 years. For 12 years, I worked, I pursued human resources, I advanced my career, and I happened to be working at a music-inspired retail company. And I was, because of my position, I was invited to speak on a panel. And that panel was speaking to a group of high school students. And when I sat down, the leader of the panel gave the guidance to the panel to say, hey, talk about the college that you went to, talk about the year you graduated, and talk about how your college experience influenced your career and where you are today. And I was probably 6th or 7th on that panel. And everyone sort of started with, my name is so-and-so, I went to this school, I graduated in this year, and started working in blah, blah, blah. And so when it got to my time, my turn, I said, my name is Lisa Collins. I attended Cal State Northridge. I didn't graduate, but that's never impacted my career. And saying those words really bothered me. It bothered me so much, and for a number of reasons. I was encouraging a group of high school students who were excited about their education and pursuing college. In that moment, and saying those words, I recognized that a piece of me really regretted not finishing my own college experience and finishing something that I started, which is not my norm. I am someone who is very driven. I accomplish what I set out to do. And it is the one thing that I recognized that I had not finished. And I just didn't like the way those words felt as they came out of my mouth and sounded as they came out of my mouth. And so I sat on the panel, engaged with the students, left that panel, went straight back to my desk, called Cal State Northridge and said, hey, what do I need to do to finish my education? At the time, I lived in the South Bay. The woman at Northridge that helped me said, listen, you could easily come back here, finish your year. It's probably going to take you about 18 months or so. But you also live in the South Bay and you live by Cal State Dominguez, and that's a great school too, and all of your units transfer. And so I pursued it. I got my transcripts. I did all the things that I needed to do to, have my units transfer, applied to Dominguez, and I got in and I became a full-time employed person by day, and then a truly full-time student by night. So what I set out to do 12, 13 years previous, when I said, I'll just accept this job and go to school in the evenings, and didn't do that, I actually started that process as an adult, 12, 13 years later. And I went to school for another year and a half. And I completed my degree. And walking across that stage, graduating on May 31st, 2006, was one of the proudest moments of my life. And not only because I had finished something that I had started, but because I finished at a university that I really had a great experience. I love, you guys have fancy new buildings at Dominguez now, and it's a beautiful campus. And when I went to Dominguez, I thought the campus was, just as beautiful. It was so intimate. I always thought of it as very cozy. I had such great professors, and, the class sizes were small. I was always engaged and continually challenged to push past, the way that I think about things and to have a broader worldview. And I always appreciated Dominguez for that. And it was a really great experience. And I'm someone who truly believes that all things happen for a reason, and obviously believe that I was meant to graduate from Dominguez and be able to say that I was once a student at Cal State Dominguez. And so following graduation, having not been a student for so long and then being a student as an adult, and, again, thinking and opening my view and being more open and having all of these, engaging conversations and writing tons of papers and exploring various subjects, it made me very curious. So I still function in an HR capacity, but I sort of rethought my career a bit. And whereas I had focused on and specialized in recruiting, or talent acquisition as it's known today, I really shifted and I started to think about, what I wanted my career to look like and how I wanted to impact people, and, how I wanted to be a contributor at an organization that I was working with, and did a complete shift and went more of we call it a generalist route. And so it's the ability to sort of touch multiple areas of HR and support a business within an organization. And that's where I landed. I took a job with an entertainment company, a studio, as not ashamed to say it, as a coordinator. And I started my career over again. And I worked my way up and did various projects and worked closely with people that were encouraging and helped me to bring out some of my own talents and eventually continue to advance my career again. um, and, ultimately landed at Netflix, which is a great place to work. But for the past 5 years, I've really focused on being an HR person and on an HR team that is focused on providing HR support to cast members and crew members working on production, which has been really fulfilling for me and for the people that I work with. So it's been a great journey, and I attribute much of my journey to, I'll go back and say that I made that statement to those students that, I didn't graduate from college, but it hasn't impacted my career. And the truth of the matter is, I don't know if that's true, right? And so I feel like in completing my education, in having that satisfaction of knowing that I had, gained something that really I had wanted the moment I started pursuing it, and then really opening my mind just in the exposure to the various classes, people, and information that I had at Cal State Dominguez, really helped me propel my career forward. And I'm not saying that that probably wouldn't have happened if I didn't. I don't know for sure, but I truly feel like completing my education and having that experience at Dominguez has certainly been a driver for the way in which my world opened and my career progressed. So I'm truly grateful for the experience, and I just loved it so much. So I was thinking about, and I don't know where we are on time, so we're right at about 20 minutes. I was thinking about career advice, and what could I offer? What sort of career advice could I give this group today? And one of the things that I first started thinking about, I had all of these things that I was thinking through, and then I thought, well, we should probably talk about just you and your profile, and how you potentially show up to an employer or, a recruiter, and what does that look like? Because oftentimes, and many of you know this, and some of you might be working already, but people don't meet us right away, right? When we're looking for opportunity or looking for jobs, the way that someone finds out a little bit about us is through our resume or through our LinkedIn profile. And so I'm always someone who believes that that's your first impression, right? Your first impression is your resume, or, I love LinkedIn as a source to find candidates. That's the first impression. So making sure that your resume is a good reflection of you, your skill set, your interests, your education, or that your LinkedIn profile is current, and is a good representation of you. If you don't have LinkedIn, you should build a profile, because LinkedIn is a huge source for the way that recruiters find talent. And so you want to represent yourself as best you can to catch the attention of someone, to say, hey, I love this person on paper. I'd love to bring them in and learn a little bit more. So that's my first piece of advice, is make sure that your resume and or your LinkedIn profile are great representations of you. And by that, what I mean is, that it shows a clear career history, that it is grammatically correct, that it is, that the punctuation is correct, all of those things. And that, I think when I was, building my career and using my resume and trying to get myself in front of a recruiter, it felt a little more conservative in the way that I would present. But I think we live in a time where it's okay to even, offer some information that's can be a little bit fun. So like on my profile or on my resume, I have that I'm a foodie. I enjoy local hiking trails, and I'm also a dog and cat lover. So I think it's okay to say, a little bit of that too, to give someone some insight on, who you are as a person. I think building your network is key. I still talk to people that I met in my very first job at a record company. And so building your network is so key. When you meet people, people that you're able to learn from, people that you're able to connect with on a professional level, it's really helpful to keep up with those people, to, touch base with those people. We're lucky that we live in a day and age where social media exists. It's so easy now to keep up with people via social media. Back in the day, I had like a paper phone book, and I'd write someone's name in and write their phone number or any other information. But now, you'll hear people say, oh, well, connect with me on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is. So it's easy to connect with people, and I encourage you to do so. I encourage you to continue to build your network, because it's a lot of great referrals come through word of mouth. Like, oh, I know so-and-so, they're so great. They're currently working at such and such place. I know they're looking to get into whatever the field is, retail or technology. You should talk to them. They're really great. Like that, referrals are so great. And people get referred by being part of greater networks. So you have access to your alumni network. You have access to a network build on LinkedIn. I know I sound like I'm advertising for LinkedIn. I promise that I'm not. I love LinkedIn. And, also friends, family, using your social media as a way to let people know that you're interested in building your network, or you might actually be interested in looking for a new career. But having a solid network is great. Oh, look, we have a question. It says, how do you work out your LinkedIn if you were working for, oh, it went away. I can't see the chat. But I did see part of that question. I don't know if someone can check the chat. Well, maybe I can.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
How do you work out your LinkedIn if you were working for a while in a totally different field than what you came back to school for? I think that's quite all right. So your LinkedIn profile and your resume should be a history of your career, of your work experience. And so if you have consistent work experience and then your education is something different, we can use an example. Suppose you have a career history in retail, and then you go back to school and you get a bachelor's or a master's in, we'll just say, human resources management, because that's pretty close to my heart. And someone says, oh, tell me about this desire to go back and get your degree in this field when you've been working in this field before. You just have to have your story that connects those reasons, right? Well, for a number of years, I worked retail. It was a great experience for me, but in working retail, I realized that I liked engaging with people. I started thinking about a career that I could have that allowed me to work with people more closely, learned more about human resources for the people that I worked with, totally had an interest in it, decided to pursue a degree in it with the hopes of entering the HR field to pursue, my career in HR. You'll have to connect the dots for someone, because someone is genuinely asking you the question because they want to know, how did you work in this field for this period of time, decide to go pursue your education in this field, and how do you want to connect the two, or use one to, build into something else, or use it as a trajectory into a different field. Only you know that story. So you have to be able to communicate and articulate what those reasons are to give someone confidence that, like, oh yeah, this could be great, and let's help you get there. I hope that helps you. You can feel free to send it a chat if you want to know more about that. Since there are so many comments, I think I'll just try to, my last advice was, I'm just going to share it. Be open. Oftentimes we get so focused on what the right position looks like, what the title looks like. Be open. learn about what a role is, learn if that role makes sense for you as an individual with your, does it match with your career goals and where you see yourself advancing your career? Does it align with your personal goals as well? Those are the questions that you have to ask yourself before saying yes to an opportunity. But certainly, be open and always be open to learn more. But I see a lot of questions here, so I'm just going to, I'll go forward. Have you thought of pursuing an HR certification? Ooh, I lost. Like PHR or SHRM? What are your thoughts about it? So the funny thing is that I had my PHR certification for a number of years, and I let it lapse. And I let it lapse probably because work got so busy that I just couldn't keep up with the annual conferences and meetings that you have to attend to ensure that you can continue your certification through to the next period. But I did pursue it. I find that they're great to have. And going through the certification process, you learn so much about how the HR field came to be. So if you are interested in pursuing it, I encourage you to do so. For me, it was great learning, but I didn't keep up with it. So that's my fault. But I am supportive of them, and I think they're great. This feels like a moment where after this call, I'm probably going to do a little research about certification and go back and get mine. But no, I believe in them. I think they're great learning. It never hurts to have additional certification and education, and I'm certainly a fan of that. Let's see here. It says, next one. I'm a recent graduate. I'm losing the questions because folks are putting in new ones, and I just had that one. So it says, I'm a recent graduate and I have 4 years of HR experience. I'm debating if I should get a PHR to replace a master's degree. Personal choice. I can't advise you on that. If you have an interest in the certification, my advice would be to research it, research the certification, research a master's degree. I feel like they're different. And so certainly do your research and do what you think makes the most sense for you and your career aspirations. But I would just encourage you to do the research and pursue what you think makes sense for you and your career goals. When I talk to people who are studying business administration, they always tell me to study HR management. Yes, because it is the safest way to secure a job after college. What do you think of this statement in the context of today's job market? For the record, I'm an accounting student. Again, I think you have to do what makes sense for you. I mean, I'm biased. I love HR. And so, but if you have an interest in accounting and that's where you see your career, certainly go for that. If you are someone who has an interest in HR, go for that. What I will say is that if you pursue something because someone has said, hey, it's the greatest way to get a job, it's the best way to get a job. And I don't know if that's true or not, but to work in a field that you're not passionate about will probably show up. So I would encourage you to pursue what you're passionate about. Certainly you want to make a living and have a good experience while working. I wouldn't necessarily let the thought that if you get this degree, it will be easier to get a job. And I would more focus on pursue a degree where you have interest and know that, let me say this, when I go to work every day and I don't feel like I'm working, and I don't feel like I'm working for a couple of reasons. One, I love engaging with people, and two, I love problem solving. HR is problem solving people problems. And so I never feel like I'm working. I just feel like I'm getting to engage with people, figure out what the challenges are, come up with a solution, and I do that over and over and over again, and I love it. So, you know, I say that to say you could easily get a job in a field that it might be easier to get a job in that field. But if you don't love it and you don't have a lot of passion for it, you're going to feel like you're working every single day. And I think the goal is to land in something where you are having such a great experience that yes, you're working, but just having the experience of doing something that you're passionate about is what you feel most versus just feeling like, oh, I'm putting in the time, I'm working 8 hours, I'm going home, and then I'm doing it again. That doesn't feel great, right? So I encourage you to just think about that more, think about where your passions lie and pursue that. The job market is tough. We are currently living through a pandemic. And so that adds some complexity to it. So, you know, it may not be easy depending on what field you're in, but certainly think about, you know, working in a field where you can enjoy it, be challenged, and have a good time while you're doing it. I want to make sure I get these in order. Let's see.
I can help you out, Lisa. The next question is, do you have any advice for someone who is interested in getting a media internship at a large media company like Netflix?
I will just speak to a large media company. You know, there are internships out there. You have to, so there are a couple of things. A lot of the large studios and entertainment companies offer internships. The application process happens for a certain period of time, so you have to be aware of when that is. Make sure that you're getting your application in, make sure that you are providing all of the information that they are asking for. Again, you can learn a lot about that by building your, I knew this was going to happen, by building your network and, you know, and just making sure that you're meeting the application process time and providing all the data that's all the information that they are asking for. And then showing up really well in the interview, being prepared, knowing about that company, knowing about the internship, and having questions. That's the other thing I say when you're going through the interview process is at the end of the interview or midway through the interview or whenever during the interviewer may say, do you have any questions? You should always have some. And your questions should be based around research that you've done around the company, research that you may have done around the position. An interview is an opportunity for you to interview the company as well to determine, is this an internship that I think will be beneficial for me to learn something and ultimately, you know, get my foot in the door to start pursuing my broader career. So that's my advice on internships. I hope that's helpful. I know there's another question in there.
Yes, the next question is, due to COVID-19 quarantine, what advice would you give to a recent graduate who is seeking employment? I am willing to also relocate outside of the state.
So it's interesting, and that, you know, that's a hard question. My advice is perseverance, right? There are companies that are still hiring, and I would look for those companies, look at the roles that they have open, determine whether or not you meet the qualifications for those roles, and still apply. You know, it's a tough market, right? Our world is different right now, but I know that there are still companies hiring, and I would just encourage you to continue to seek those companies, look at the roles that they have open, and certainly put yourself out there as an applicant.
Awesome. The next question is, what is the most valuable lesson you learned in your HR career?
That's a great question. So I think the most valuable lesson is listening. And when I was younger in my career, more junior in my career, I worked with someone, and I used to do this thing where she would start to talk. She was my boss, Laura Kessler. I'll never forget her. And she would start talking and she'd be getting near the end of her sentence, and I would sort of try to guess what she was going to say, and I would say, and give it to Pam, and she'd say, no, that's not what I was going to say. I was going to say, you take it, keep it at your desk, whatever the instruction was, right? And so I did that with her a few times, and at one point she just said, you've got to stop. Lisa, if you're going to be a good HR person, and I think you can be, you have got to start actively listening. Was the best advice I'd ever received, because it literally it changed my world. Like, I stopped trying to guess what I was going to say as someone was talking, come up with my answer even before they had finished their thought, guess the end of their sentence before they said it, and really became an active listener. And when you're dealing with people, which again, human resources is all about dealing with people, you're engaging in conversation. You're talking to people, and the best way to figure out how to help someone, how to be a good support for a leader, how to solve a problem, is by listening to all of the details, and then from there coming up with what makes sense to do going forward. And so that was the best advice that I received, is to just be an active listener.
Thank you. The next question is, did you get your PHR certification before your master's or after?
Before.
Next question is, how do you deal with the job that you don't enjoy?
So that, been there, right? And it's hard, right? Because again, it goes back to me with having a passion and doing something that you love and it not feel like working. That's not to say that I haven't had jobs where I still was enjoying, the HR-ness of it, the HR aspects of it, but working, whether it was working in a department or on a team or with a company that just didn't align with my values, or I just didn't feel like that was a good place for me. And you make a choice, right? I do think that you can try to find the moments that are good in the job and always keep a great positive attitude. But it doesn't hurt if that's how you're feeling and it's not a right match, to sort of start to look elsewhere and, try to make connections and see if there is something else that you can move into, whether it's that same company or if you have to start looking outside of a company, exploring opportunities outside of a company. Not every job is perfect though, and I will say that. And so, we think we work at these organizations and we're like, oh, it's so amazing and it's so great. And yes, it is, it can be, but nothing's perfect. And so you're always going to have something that may not feel great about the job that you're doing. And so it's important to assess, is that what you're feeling in this moment, or is there something really wrong with the organization or the department or the company that you're working with that just feels like this isn't the right match? And if that's the case, then you obviously, at some point you have to go and pursue something else that feels much better for you. But I separate it to say, if there's something that you're like, oh, this is terrible and this doesn't feel great and this is awful, and it's a small thing that just takes away from the perfection of what you think this job should be, by going to another job, there might be another small thing, that doesn't feel great, that may take away from the perfection. So if something's awful and someone's mistreating you, or the company is doing things that, again, just doesn't align with your values, then by all means pursue something else. If it's a small thing, you might need to reassess to think like, is this something I can live with? And if it is, excuse me, that's okay too. I just want to make sure that, to convey the message that no job is perfect, no company is perfect, and there's always going to be some small hurdle that you have to overcome to still make it feel like a good experience for you. I hope that answers your question.
The next question is, what advice can you share for someone going through a career change, specifically from law enforcement to public relations and advertising? And Additionally, this person is a recent graduate who obtained the Bachelor's of Arts in Public Relations and Advertisement.
Again, I go back to what I said before, right? And did you say they were a police officer?
It didn't specifically say police
They
officer.
were in law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you have to be able to tell that story, right? What transferable skills do you possess that you know, in addition to what you learned in school, that you can then apply to a role in this new field? And so you have to be able to make that connection for someone, right? Like if there were areas of your previous role or previous job where you may have had some public relations responsibilities or some things that sort of tied to it, or you participated on a group or a project that was your primary responsibility, you can talk about those things. Sometimes it's just as simple as saying, listen, I loved what I was doing. I decided to go back to school to do this. And now this is the career that I want to pursue for these reasons. But you just have to be able to tell that story, and convince someone that you'd be the right choice to fill whatever opening they may have. And I think transferable skills are always the best thing to talk about. And oftentimes people might think, well, you know, I only work in retail and I don't know what transferable skills I might have. Well, probably a whole bunch. Are you interacting with the public? Are you, you know, providing great customer service? Are you, you know, able to talk about, you know, merchandise? Do you know details about, you know, sales and, you know, whatever else? Like you have to pick apart sort of what you were doing and find like the skill set that was needed for you to do that well, and think about those skills and how they apply to something that's new, and be able to talk about how you can apply them. And so that's the best advice that I have, is really focusing on what skills are transferable and how do I explain why I made this change or why I want to make this change. Again, I hope that helps. If you have more, feel free to add another chat question.
Awesome. I'm kind of I'm weaving through some of these questions because some of them are a little repetitive.
Okay.
Like things that you've already mentioned.
Sure.
The other question is, what is the interview process like with Netflix?
I just saw that question, and it's interesting. It's a wonderful experience. I think, and I probably should have given this at the top of this recording and this interview, is that we typically don't talk openly, and I don't openly about the inner workings of Netflix. I do encourage you to read the culture memo that is a part of our website. It gives you a lot of insight about what it's like to work at Netflix, our culture at Netflix, you know, and so it's one of the things that I read, and after reading it, I thought, ooh, that is an amazing company. I'd love to work there. So that's the best advice that I can give, is certainly take a look at our culture memo and read through that, and it gives you quite a bit of insight. Does that help? I probably won't be very specific about the inner workings of Netflix on this call, and but I do think the culture memo is a great document to read, and I encourage you to do so.
That's definitely helpful.
Okay, perfect.
The next question is, do you have any advice in a gap in work history due to going back to school? Is it frowned upon? If so, how is the best explained in your resume?
Again, I don't think it's frowned upon, right? So if you're working for a period of time and you have an opportunity to go back to school, potentially full time, and dedicate your focus to working full time and then pursuing another career after, I think that's fantastic. And again, great story to tell. I was working a full-time job, working in whatever the field was, applied, wanted to pursue a degree in whatever subject matter, and had an opportunity, thankfully, to do that full time, dedicated myself 100% to my studies and pursuing my degree. Now that I'm finished, I'd like to return to the work world. Saw this opportunity, thought it was a great match for me, and that's why I applied. Like, again, you have to be able to connect those dots and tell that story. And I can't imagine if an employer were to look down upon you for pursuing your education full time and having the opportunity to do that, and said, "Oof, well, if I were you, I wouldn't have done that," or whatever. I obviously am making that up. I don't think anyone would say that. But if someone were to say, criticize you for doing that, then it gives you an opportunity to think about that employer and is that somewhere that you want to work. But I don't think people look down upon someone having the opportunity to work full time, to pursue their education full time, and dedicate themselves to their education full time. Feels scary, right? Because it is going to create a gap on your resume or in your work history. But it's not a gap where you weren't productive. It's a gap because you were pursuing education. And I mean, that's a wonderful thing. Hopefully that answers. Again, if not, I will just say that one more time. Like, if I answer your question and you've got follow-up and we have time, by all means, share a follow-up in the chat.
Did you want me to continue with the Q&A, or is there any other last advice that you would like to give, since you put a lot of thought
I had one more, and I think it was just really about working hard and persevering, but it's fine. We can continue with the Q&A, because I recognize oftentimes in these situations, people have questions and are hoping to get some insight. So I'm happy to answer any more that I can. I will say, there is one thing that I will say. I talk about building a network. And so you all are more than welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. And I will be sure to accept any connections that come my way from those of you that are CSUDH students or graduates. I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn, so please add me to your network.
Thank you. The next question is, what's your top recommendations for someone changing their career at the age of 40?
I think it's great. I really do. I think it's great. So what are we? Are we 2020? I say I think it's great because, I did the same thing. I talked about earlier deciding that I wanted to pursue more of a generalist route in human resources and starting my career over as a coordinator. And I did that. I mean, I know this is Facebook Live and there's probably more people watching, but I did that just as I was, turning the age that you mentioned. And so I don't think there's any shame in it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I think that, time is a construct, right? If you assign things that you can do, and this is my own personal belief, but if you assign things that you can do, should do, would do, will do to an age, then you're doing yourself a disservice. If you look at it as, I am at this point in my life and I feel like I have an interest in doing whatever it is, and I have the qualifications and I have the education, and more importantly, I have the fire inside to do it, then pursue it. I don't think that age should be a determining factor on whether or not you should do something. Now, am I going to try to attempt a backflip and a handstand into a cartwheel at this age? Probably not. Like those things, right? We can sort of think about, am I healthy enough to just run out to the front yard and do a cartwheel and a backflip? I don't know. I'll probably hurt myself terribly. But if you decide like, well, I've been working in aerospace for 20 years and I really have an interest in pursuing, taking my 20 years of experience and pursuing a career in whatever that career is, then figure out the way to do that, right? What I will say when you make those choices is that you sometimes have to be prepared that depending on the size of the organization, depending on the job itself, depending on the qualifications that are needed to be a senior leader in that field. You may have to start at a level that's very different from the level that you're coming from in your current career. And if you are comfortable doing that and you can put pride aside and still work hard, learn, and grow, it's still a great opportunity. It's still a good thing to pursue. And I would never discourage it. I hope that answers your question.
So we're about 9 minutes in. I'll take another question. How long did it take you to study for the PHR? And how long did it take for the?
So when I pursued the PHR, I actually went through a class. So I did I think it was a 6 or an 8 week class where each week we spent time going through a module of the PHR. And it was great. For me, it was great. I did it after work. It was a class that I took in the evenings. And even after the class, I actually got a certificate for completing the class. And then from there, went and took the PHR. So I don't know if that class is still offered. At the time that I took it, I can't remember what college. It was at one of the Cal States that I did it. Might have been Cal State LA or Cal State Long Beach. I can't remember. But it was great. That actually helped me quite a bit is by taking this class. And again, that took 6 or 8 weeks, the class. I studied for a period of time and then took the test shortly thereafter. So in total, I probably spent, 4 to 6 months prepping before taking the test.
Awesome. Thank you. Lisa, do you have any final words or advice for?
Yeah, I think first, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to speak to all of you. I enjoyed it. I love interacting with people. I think Zoom is amazing. And it's nice to be able to see some faces. I sometimes miss the talking and the interaction. And so, that's just the period of time that we're living in, but I'm really grateful to have been asked to spend this time with you. And I just, I want to encourage you. I think oftentimes we can get pretty stuck in, this is hard, this is difficult, but I want to tell you that sometimes it's not easy. It's not easy. You pursued your degree. Think about when you were sort of getting close to graduation and knowing that you had met all of your requirements and knowing what you had to do to sort of get to that last step to get over the hump so that you were eligible to graduate. And there were periods of time where that was hard too, but you got through it. You did it in a brilliant way. And so I think the same as you're building your career, it's not always going to be easy, but that doesn't mean that it's not possible. And so I want to encourage you to persevere. I want to encourage you to work really hard. I said it earlier. I really want to encourage you to be open to opportunity. It may not look like, sound like, be exactly like what you wanted it to be. But if you can get it an opportunity, get your foot in the door and start learning, start growing, start building your path to having a really successful career, do that. If you have an opportunity to learn from someone, to engage in conversation, attend a conference, learn something new that you haven't learned before, build your network, all of those things will really help you as you pursue your career. And then once you have your foot in the door, work hard, connect with people that are, smart and brilliant and willing to share that intelligence and brilliance with you. Take in that information, continue to be a sponge and absorb. I still learn stuff every single day. And I find it fascinating. And there's tons of stuff that I don't know. I don't pretend to know everything. And so it's important to just continue to learn and grow, work hard. And, you know, I expect all of you to have really amazing experiences, and I'd love to hear from you and hear about where you land. But I just encourage you, and I wish you well, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lisa. I was going through all the chats, and quite a bit of students and recent graduates are thanking you for your time. You've been an inspiration and motivating especially during this time. So thank you so much.
Thank you all. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Be safe, be well, and maybe we will actually see each other one day.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
For everyone that's still on the call, I just want to make sure that you all know the Alumni Association is free. If you and we in partnership as part of your benefits with the Career Center, you have 1 year after graduation to still access the Career Center. And that way the services that you currently are getting through as a student will be applied as an alum after your graduation. And if you're not, and then after that, we do ask you to sign up for the Alumni Association. It is free, and to continue to learn about all these great workshops and webinars that we offer with the Career Center and Alumni alone. I ask you to join the Alumni Association. You'll be able to get our alumni newsletter. Also, if you want to follow our Facebook alumni page and or our LinkedIn alumni group page, those are a variety of different resources that will keep you updated on all the great things that we are currently doing, along with any alumni engagement to connect you with fellow Toros. Anything else, Elof?
Just that we'll be sending a recording of all the sessions from this week. I just have to upload them onto YouTube, and we'll be sending it out to students next week, and we'll also include the link to sign up for the Alumni Association. So stay tuned and check your email.
Thank you, guys. Go Toros.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.